Hey guys, Michael Sanchez, violin teacher here. Hope you guys are having a good evening. Welcome to today's number 2 technique class. We're going to be going through a bunch of student questions today, just like we did yesterday, and some awesome questions. Last couple of days, it's been amazing just how many questions you guys have been asking. I'm sorry we won't be able to get to everything tonight, but I'm going to try to get through as many as I can. And I will be giving away a Fiddle for Dummies book. This is the book I wrote in 2014. And I'll be giving this away in the class today. So all you have to do is comment on today's post. You can say anything you'd like, maybe just about how you're doing with the violin. Let us know how excited you are about the group classes that are happening soon. Anything really, and you have a chance to win. So good luck to you guys. All right, so what I'm gonna do is just like yesterday, I'm gonna sort of start off with some sort of beginner-like questions and then get into some more advanced stuff. And at the very end, sort of talk about the group classes. And I also would like to take some of your questions that you asked in today's class. So I sort of hopefully left some time at the very end for questions from you guys. So let's get started. All right, so the first question is from Deb. Deb asks, I was wondering if the more you play your violin, the more in tune it stays. Also, how do you know on which string to start playing on when it comes to notes? Great question. So yeah, definitely when you get new violin strings, they're going to take a little bit of time to break in, and normally about 1 to 2 weeks it takes. And if you have synthetic strings, it's going to take a little bit longer compared to as if you had steel strings. So brands like Helicore, Preludes, those are a little bit cheaper brand strings. Those are steel strings, and they're not going to break in as much. They're going to sort of stay put more. But a synthetic string, which is actually higher quality, is going to sort of stretch more, and it's going to actually take a little bit longer. So if you find yourself just putting on new strings, it's very common that you're going to have to use the pegs more often than normal, and that's totally normal. So great question. Next part of that, you're just wondering when do I start, or like what string do I start on? It all sort of depends on which method you're learning. Technically, when I teach the Violin Tutor Pro method, I sort of recommend that the student learns the middle 2 strings, which is D and A. So actually the way that I teach sort of beginners is take the thumb, put it on the corner of the fingerboard, and we sort of pluck both the A strings and the D strings, and we start to learn notes. The notes that I sort of recommend for beginners would be D, E, which is first finger, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So I just play D 1, 2, 3, A 1, 2, 3. So those are sort of the basic notes that I normally teach beginners. Great question. All right, let's go on to work of art. Sorry, I don't have the name in there. Oh, it's Mr. Mendez, Art Mendez. How you doing, Art? Good to see your name. Your question was, what is the correct left hand posture position? Great question. So basically when you're playing, the biggest thing that you want to really focus on is make sure that your wrist is not caved in like this when you're playing the violin. This technically is going to make it hard to eventually move the hand up to shift. So it's really important to keep the wrist straight. The other thing that's really important, I talked about this in yesterday's technique class, is just doing a good setup with your left hand. So I'll do it quick because I mentioned it yesterday, but we have the thumb position, about same places where the index finger goes, the first finger. Then we want to make sure our hand is back. We want to make sure our hand is high. And then we want to turn, and then just let our fingers fall. And while doing all that, we want to keep the wrist nice and straight. We don't want to bend it in like this. But I see that all the time, that students sort of rely too much on holding it here, and sort of it's a little helpful to do it as your wrist is locked in like that. So try to avoid that. All right, next question is from Ian. Ian asks, how do I prevent putting too much pressure into the fingerboard? It's a great question. I talk about that all the time with students, and if you guys have followed me quite a bit, you know that I emphasize that. So just to give you guys sort of an idea, a lot of students overpress into the fingerboard, and it causes a whole bunch of problems when they're playing. For example, it's hard to do vibrato when you're grabbing too tight and when you're pressing too hard. It's hard to shift because, if you put more pressure into the fingerboard, your hand is sort of not going to easily move. So it's so important to have minimal pressure with your left hand into the fingerboard. And the biggest thing that I emphasize for you guys is try to aim the finger on the very edge right before the nail. That's the hardest part of the skin, and that's what allows you to not press as hard and still get the same amount of pressure. One way you guys can practice this is actually set up to do pizzicato like we talked about earlier, and try to just practice that minimal contact right on the very edge of the skin, and see if you can still get the violin notes to have a ring like this. Okay, now if you're not pressing enough, you're going to get this. Like that. See how it's sort of a dead sound, just sort of doesn't go all the way? So try to have minimal pressure. Obviously you can press super hard and get that sound, but see how lightly you can do it and still get the ring sound. That means that you have good pressure when it rings. So I'm going to practice that right now. Like that, and I'm aiming at the very edge, and this is how hard I'm pressing down. Very little. And that's going to allow you guys to be able to play faster as there's less effort. It's going to allow you to vibrato, and it's going to allow you to shift a lot easier. Great question. And by the way, before I move on, I just want to let you guys know all you have to do is comment on this post, and you'll have a chance to win my book tonight. So I hope you guys have it, or all you guys have a chance to win that are watching, that are here live. So this is my Fiddle for Dummies book. The first 8 chapters or so are sort of applying to both violin and fiddle, as violin and fiddle are the exact same instrument, it just differs in how it's played. So yeah, anybody that gets one of these, I'm sure would enjoy it. It's a 300-page book. It took me a lot of time to write the music and just the whole book. So good luck to you guys. Hope one of you guys will be the lucky winner tonight. Okay, I'm just going to check to make sure you guys can see me, see how many viewers we have right now. All right, we got 29 viewers. Cool. The most viewers I've ever had live was 55. That was when my grandpa and me were playing. So maybe soon we'll surpass that. We'll see. So thanks guys for watching tonight. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Michael Curie. Hey, Michael, good to hear from you. It's been a while. I remember you clearly. Michael asks, what is the best humidity for a violin? And then he says, how about extremely low or high humidity, and what is the best way to prevent damage? Great question. So yeah, this is something that I have to sort of always pay attention to with my violins. I have over 200 violins in my shop. So in the wintertime, when it gets really dry, I have to make sure that I really manage my humidity levels in my shop, because if it gets below about 35% humidity, that's when it can start to get bad, where instruments can actually crack. And that's the worst thing you want with a violin, is for it to crack. It makes the violin go way down in value, makes it sound not as good, so you don't want that to happen. Technically, the more expensive your violin is, the more you have to really be aware of this. Just to let you guys know. Very important. So under 35%, I would say, is sort of your point of, be careful. I actually have a gauge that I just put right in my shop that tells me what the humidity level is. So when it's really hot outside, when it's high humidity, normally it's around 55, 60% here where I'm at. That's totally fine. There's no problems with that. Really, I never have seen conditions where it's so high, but that's because I'm in Michigan. But it could happen where maybe you're hitting 70%. That's getting to be pretty high. Technically, with something like that, your instrument can get really, really wet, in that the pegs could easily fall out very easily. Just sort of your instrument will go out of tune, which isn't a catastrophe. But technically, I've actually seen it to where the neck of the instrument actually separates from the body. That's like worst case scenario. That happened to a student of mine that had their violin in their car, 95-degree weather for like 3 nights. So I'm sure you guys won't do that, but that technically can happen. So, but it's actually a lot more challenging, and what I've really had to watch is humidity levels being too low. If it's below 30, you're in sort of dangerous conditions as far as your violin, so be careful. Good question. All right, let's go on to the next one. Next one is from Mary. Mary asks, which method do you feel is most relevant when learning to play the violin? Learning classically or to play by ear? Great question. So, I think it's a combination of, sort of learning a lot of different things to be the most healthy. I like students learning classical violin at first, at least when it comes to the fundamentals. So actually in my book, by the way, if you comment, if you're just coming in late, you'll have a chance to win this tonight. I teach the bare fundamentals of, all the things I've been, teaching you guys. That applies to both violin and fiddle. But once you reach, say, the 6-month points or the year point, it's a great thing to sort of work on fiddle tunes or Celtic music or rock music, really anything. So, that's sort of healthy to sort of diversify and not just do one thing. Also, learning to play by ear is a great thing. I highly recommend that. That's a great tool to have when you eventually play in a band, or you have, a guitar player that wants to jam with you. That's fun. So I just encourage you guys to do a lot of different things. Try to structure your practices though, where it's like the beginning is technique and fundamentals, and then you have less of that, but sort of intonation and rhythm, and then finally that's where you sort of put your fun music. So great question. All right, next question is from Daniel. Daniel McKeon asks, I can't seem to get rid of the tension in my bowing, especially in the down bow. Any tips, drills for loosening up the bow arm? Great question, Daniel. So so you're having trouble going down bow, sort of getting some tension. I actually find a lot of times students build tension as they're coming up bow because they're not bending their wrist as they're coming up bow. That's common. Try to make sure that you're always bending to where it sort of ends up like this when you're at the frog. See how my wrist is very bent? But a lot of students kind of keep that stiff, which means they're sort of using too much of their arm or their shoulder into the bow stroke. So I'll see often, down bow is normally fine, but up bow starts to get bouncy. So that's something to pay attention to. As far as going down bow though, Daniel, my thought is maybe what you're doing is you're grabbing the bow as it's going away from you. I see that a lot. So you might be sort of tensing up the grip, stiffening the thumb as you're getting to the tip. So my encouragement would be to bring the violin a little bit more in, keep the shoulders square, because that's going to allow it to be more comfortable when you're at the tip, to not have your arm like this, totally straight at the tip. If you can be more natural, it makes it easier to sort of have good hand position, good relaxed bow hold. So that's encouragement. But yeah, wrist flexibility, keeping everything relaxed, not stiffening fingers is a really big key. One drill I can give you guys is what I call the rocking bow drill. And basically all you have to do is take your bow, set it on the strings, take your elbow above the instrument, go all the way down to your side with your elbow, okay? And try not to make a sound. If you guys have your instruments right now, you can try this. Focus on keeping your thumb and pinky curved, and eventually go a little bit faster. Focus on the index sort of pinching the bow to sort of keep it, have control. So you don't want to hear this. Okay? Most people can do that because it's sort of the bow is close to you, but Daniel, you might actually struggle to put the bow at the very tip and do the same thing. So go ahead and try this, guys, out there. This is probably harder for you guys to not make a sound, right? A lot harder to be quiet. You guys are probably more like that. So technically don't cheat by only going down so far. Go all the way down, sort of like you're taking your arm and just dropping it. Okay, that's sort of what I'm doing. I'm dropping, but I'm still keeping my bow quiet. And a lot of that is what I'm doing as I'm coming down. I'm relying on here to hold the bow, keep it sturdy, and not on here. So that's a really great drill. So I might do something like this to warm up. Do it in the middle of the bow and at the tip, like that. Great. All right. By the way, those of you guys that are coming in late, we're just going over all questions from students. And right now we're sort of in beginner-ish mode, getting a little bit tougher as we progress. So it'll be tougher questions. And if you guys comment on this post, you have a chance to win my Fiddle for Dummies book. So good luck to you guys, and hope you guys are all having a great evening. Excited about this class and learning the violin. Sorry, I won't get to all your questions. I've probably gotten over 100 questions in the last couple of days. Yesterday I probably answered 20 or 30, so we'll try our best today. All right, BP4, not sure the name, asks, do I have to use my chin rest? I find it much more comfortable to just take it off. How do I know when my bow is tightened too much? Great questions. So if you're referring to the chin rest, which is this, you definitely want to have a chin rest always on the violin. Otherwise, you're sort of awkward in how your chin is laying on the instrument. Sometimes I don't play with a shoulder rest. That's not good advice that teachers would give most students. I actually know of a teacher, though, that is in Grand Rapids, I won't say her name, that won't take a student if they use a shoulder rest. Crazy. She's probably one of the best violinists in town. And that's, for some reason, like a huge thing for her. So yeah, some teachers sort of have a different philosophy on that. I don't mind playing without a shoulder rest, but the biggest consensus that every teacher would agree on is you have to have reliance on the chin and shoulder to hold it, and not the left hand. So technically I can do this with no problem. I don't have a shoulder rest, but a shoulder rest really aids in being able to do that. So if you've been playing under 5 years, I wouldn't even mess with not having a shoulder rest. Over that, maybe, but every teacher has a different philosophy on that. All right, Adriana has the next question. She asks, I know you probably answered this question before, but can you show again how your left hand should be positioned and your knuckles? Absolutely. So hand height is so important when it comes to playing the violin. If you guys have a low hand, so if your hand is more here instead of being here, what it's going to cause is it's impossible to reach all the notes by just extending your fingers out. Technically, you're not going to be able to reach that fourth finger and that low one if your hand is too low, if it's like here instead of here. So that's a huge adjustment. Sometimes the way for me to teach you guys, and I've taught students, is try to find sort of the crack in the palm right here. So it's sort of below the index, where the index sort of meets the palm. It's right here. That's sort of where the hand should be touching the fingerboard, and that gives you that sort of height that allows you to reach all those notes. So sometimes I actually put a marker on the hand to sort of show that. So the adjustment that a lot of you guys need to make is going from here, where it's probably more comfortable for you, to here. Okay? Another way to sort of tell is as you have your first finger down, you want to make sure that it's showing to be a mountain like this and not flat. And I even see students sort of it's going that way when they're doing the first finger. So try to pay attention to how your first finger looks. It should look like that and not like that. So, good question. All right, so we're about to go into the intermediate section. Let me check to see how many viewers we got. Before I actually was able to see it, but you guys kept telling me that I need to switch my camera around so that I'm not looking like I'm playing left-handed. So now I can actually see the screen. So let me go check how many viewers we have here. All right, we're up to 42 viewers. So yeah, for those of you guys watching tomorrow night at 10 o'clock, I encourage you guys to come back and do the same thing you're doing tonight. As yeah, I have so many more questions I can answer. So, and if you want to post more, or let me know what your issues are, you can email me at michael@superiorviolins.com. Good luck to you guys as well, as all you have to do is comment on today's lesson, today's technique class, and you have a chance to win my book. All right, let's go into sort of the intermediate section of today's class. And by the way, at the very end, I will be taking some of your questions that you're posting right now, so I'll pick some random ones. All right, first intermediate-ish question is from Carol. She asks, how do you create emotion and life into your music? And how do you sort of do that with phrasing? And also, how do you deal with neck strain? So yeah, let me cover the neck strain part first. So yeah, so many students when they play, they sort of just have all these things going on that makes it difficult to play. You know, I find so often that students sort of have their neck down like this as they play. or their left arm is sort of like this as they're trying to get height, but really they just have to do this. So not that, force. So a lot of things can sort of be forced when you play the violin. That can cause neck strain, that can cause it to be uncomfortable to play. So if you're the type of person that you get sort of tired after, half hour of playing, 60 minutes of playing, there's probably something you're not quite doing right. Technically my grandfather, you guys see my grandfather, he's 92 years old, he has arthritis, and he can play for like 3 hours. So yeah, it really is just a matter of not having improper muscles in your playing. So try to pay attention to this one. Don't let your arm do something crazy. So what I always do to students is sort of do this as they're holding the violin, to try to see if there's any tension there. There shouldn't be any sort of tension. The other one would just be seeing sort of how the head is. Just go ahead and just sit in your chair as natural as you would be at a dinner table. So you're having dinner, there's no reason to do anything crazy, right? So I'm just relaxed. This is sort of how I should be when I play the violin as well. So there's no change. So I'm as relaxed as I can be. The only difference is, yeah, I'm pinching a little bit, but if you sort of approach it that way, you might have a little bit less neck strain. There just might be some things going on there that are making it tough for you. So thanks for that question, Carol. Next, we have a question from Karen Sturk. Karen Sturk took 4 years of violin lessons with me. Hope you're watching, Karen. So Karen started not knowing anything about the violin. Started off with Mary Had a Little Lamb. And I have to brag about you, Karen. You playing in orchestra last time I talked to you. It's been about a year since I talked to you. Hope you're doing well. That is a testament just to how everybody can learn. So I won't say ages, but Karen is an adult student, and a lot of people that are adults sometimes think they can't do great things. Technically, Karen's playing an orchestra. She's just really flying, plays in different groups. So you guys can do the same with a little bit of encouragement and practice. So Karen has some questions. So she asks, what are the guidelines for when to change violin strings? What type of strings do you recommend? Are moderately priced strings good for a student? Very good questions. So the first one, Karen, how do you know when to change strings? So that's basically, I would say, well, first of all, it depends on what type of strings you have. If you have synthetic strings, if they're like obbligato strings, if they're Perazzi strings, they're not going to last as long. Typically, I say about 6 months to a year on sort of more delicate synthetic strings. That would be if you practice a couple hours a week, I'd say. So if you only practice a half hour a week, you might be able to get by with those type of strings for a couple years. Technically, if you have steel strings, which is sort of the opposite of that, you really could have them for 5 years and they sort of wouldn't, need to be changed. The biggest thing is that a dull string doesn't really ring as much. It sort of just has a dead sound. So if you've had your strings for a long time, you definitely should consider getting new ones, maybe for Christmas or for your birthday or something. They're not cheap. My recommendations of strings, if you're going to go steel, go helicore. If it's those are under like $30, but it's good value. Dominants are the most popular on the market. Really good string. Those are on most of my instruments that I ship out. Higher end, I recommend Eva Perazzi for really bright strings. So if you want to just like brighten up your instrument and have a pure sound, the loudest sound possible, Eva Perazzis are good. That's made by Perastro. If you want the darkest, deepest, richest sound, I recommend Obligatos. There's a lot of others on the market that are also good, but Perastro is a great brand, and then Dominants are my favorites. All right, so I think that answers your question, Karen, but you do have a secondary question here. So you asked, what type of rosin do you recommend, and how often do you use rosin? Great questions. So what I recommend is not using boxed rosin. So boxed rosin is basically, it looks like a box, it's where you sort of have a little box of rosin. It's really cheap. Normally stuff like that costs under $5. it's really flaky. It sort of just gets all over your instrument and it makes it hard to sort of grab the strings. So avoid box rosin. My recommendations would be jade rosin, Parastro gold rosin, magic rosin's good, but there's also a lot of others out there. I don't really get too much into like, should you get light rosin or dark rosin? I think that doesn't make as big of a difference, but other people would probably disagree with that. Jade just always works for me. I have a couple blocks actually right here. So this is, $8 rosin, really potent. If I use it properly, it will last probably 5 years, but I always break them. I'm sort of aggressive. Technically, if you don't just keep going on the same track, you can keep them. You can make them last longer. So yeah, jade rosin's really good. Anything that's potent, that's probably over $5, is probably would work fine. But just stay away from box rosin. And then, how often should you rosin your bow? That really depends on how aggressive you play, how often you play, technically what kind of rosin you use. But yeah, the biggest thing is just taking your finger, swiping on the bottom of the bow, seeing how much rosin is on your finger. I would say on average every 2 practice sessions is about right. Obviously, if you get a brand new bow, you have to really cake it and get it sort of started, because technically a violin bow comes non-rosined. It's silky and it needs to sort of work in that rosin. So, but once you get to that point, I'd say, yeah, on average every 2 practice sessions. But one thing I should say, I do have some students that are like sort of over rosiners, I'll call them. Like they just really rosin that bow, and I tell some students like that, yeah, you don't need to rosin your bow for at least 2 weeks, because yeah, they just rosin their bow so heavily. So, but then there's also the students that are just like very delicate and they don't even scratch it first. You can sort of scratch it to sort of get some of the flakiness up to the top. They just barely put some on and then they never really build it in. So this bow actually needs a little bit of rosin, so I'll just sort of show you sort of how it looks when I rosin. I sort of build it in throughout, take a couple swipes, do a couple total even throughout. Do that for 5 seconds or 10 seconds or so. Great questions, Karen. Okay, I guess you have one more here. Sometimes when I'm playing, my bow skips, especially on the E string. Have you ever heard of a rosin that is homemade? Interesting, you sort of correlate that together. Skipping on the E string is probably related to technique. Got to get that elbow down farther. It's probably not a rosin issue, but yeah, you have to come over for a lesson and we can show you. Thanks for participating, Karen. All right, next question. We just have a few more here, and then we'll be talking a little bit about the group classes, and we'll also be giving away a Fiddle for Dummies book. So good luck to you guys. All you have to do is comment on this post, and you'll have a chance to win. All right, next question is from, I just realized I didn't answer the first part of Carol's question. Let me quick answer that. So how do you create emotion and life into your music? So yeah, great question. So basically you don't want to just play with not ever moving your instrument. You want to sort of get into the music, but you want to definitely get a sort of solid foundation of technique first. You don't just want to move around everywhere if you're just starting. But eventually, if say you've been playing a year or two, try to at least sort of bob to the music. So instead of just me playing. So just sort of getting into it with the beats is a good start. So I think that's sort of a way to show emotion in your playing. Obviously vibrato is another one, which if you haven't developed that yet, I would highly recommend that. But yeah, really the violin is sort of an extension of myself and a lot of other people out there that have been playing a while. It's sort of like your voice. You sing in the shower, it's sort of part of you. Same idea with the violin. Eventually it will become more comfortable to you. It'll sort of be an extension of yourself. You'll be able to close your eyes and just play and not have all these bad thoughts in your mind about, am I playing in tune, do I know what I'm doing? You'll overcome that over time. I would say 5 years, 10 years for sure. You're sort of feeling more comfortable, with just being able to sing or just being able to play. So, all right. Fred Buck asked, I've been playing violin for 6 years. Playing scales and etudes for about 2/3 of my playing does not work for me. Am I hurting my chances of improvement because I'm not playing scales and etudes? Great question, Fred. So, it's one of those things. I mean, technically it's better to play something than to play nothing. But if you have no sense of like technique and structure in your practice sessions, I think that definitely limits you at the least. You can actually, I'd say, go backwards if you have no awareness of like how you're holding it and stuff like that. But technically, if you've been playing for 6 years, maybe you have some of that foundation, so then it wouldn't really hurt you. But I just say to students, I mean, yeah, it's just amazing at how much farther students get with like a solid foundation. I'll give you an example. I had a student, her name's Cassie. She still is one of my best students that comes here every once in a while. She had a solid foundation, say, after 6 months. And I would say she was sort of flying past, say, another student that came to me that had been playing 5-6 years, but they were learning an orchestra at school. And when you don't pay attention to foundation fundamentals, because technically it's hard to do that when you're sort of in a group setting, but when you're in a private setting, one-on-one, and sort of have that more focus on some of the fundamentals, I mean, I would say she was playing farther and better and definitely set up more with foundation than the student that came to me after 6 years of orchestra. So I see that all the time where like the amount of years you've been playing is, yeah, it's related to your skill, but you can really fly in the violin, just soar if you develop this solid foundation. And that also relates to your routine. It relates to, what you're doing in your practice sessions. One of my best students a couple years ago, he only practiced like half hour a day. That's all he did. He didn't practice like 3 hours a day like you think. My best student, but he did it every day the same way and did it exactly the way I recommended. And after 3 years, I mean, he's just soaring, doing so many great things. So my encouragement for you guys would be just to not think you have to practice to over practice. It's about quality practice. It's about just doing the right things, and over time you're going to see a huge improvement. So great. All right. Well, I want to check to see how many people are watching, and I encourage you guys to, comment on this post as you'll have a chance to win my Fiddle for Dummies book. See how many people we got. All right, we're up to 43. Very cool. All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about the group classes here at the end, and encourage you guys to come tomorrow. So 10 o'clock tomorrow, we're going to be going over some more violin technique stuff. Hope to see you guys there. We're in the works of creating these group classes that I'm really, really excited about. If you guys are interested, feel free to email me so I know to sort of have a point of interest of you. I can reply back towards the end of the week when we have it all planned out. But we've been really discussing this, just having students sort of be in classes with some of our violin teachers that have been following us and helping us through Violin Tutor Pro website. Just 5 or 6 just awesome violin teachers, Diane, Scott, Suzanne, Vanessa, just awesome violin teachers, Chantel, Cameron. These are all teachers that have students, been playing for on average, I'd say over 15, 20 years. And they're all wanting and interested to give you guys advice, tips in sort of a structured format. So just imagine, the thought of going to a group class and sort of having an assignment, knowing what you need to work on. You sort of get to know the people that are in the class that are all around the same level. Community builds skill. It just helps you to stay accountable. It's exciting. I encourage the people that sign up for these group classes to sort of come a half hour beforehand, as then you'll sort of get to know each other, and I think that's a really good thing. So yeah, more information is on the way. We have a meeting on Friday with all the teachers, and that should be a lot of fun, just planning some more things. And I think by next week we'll be sort of launched with this concept. So hope you guys are excited about it. All right, so it's about that time to give away my book. So I'm going to randomly pick a winner. So if you guys want a quick comment that just popped in, I'm going to pick a random comment, and that person's going to win my book. So I'll sign it as well for you. And if you don't have any interest in the fiddle, the first half is all violin technique, which applies to fiddle as well. So hopefully it will still benefit you. So. All right, I just switched the camera around. Technically now it puts my ring on the wrong side. I don't know how to fix that. If you guys have any ideas for me, that would be cool, because I don't know. I like to think I'm a techie guy, but sometimes I can't figure these things out. Oh, you know what? I did say that I was going to answer a couple questions, didn't I? Let me just do 2 questions I'll try to answer. Michelle asked, it's all coming together this summer for me. How do I stop hitting 2 strings? Yeah, so, it's all about bow playing. It's all about just making that bow, be at exactly the right spot. It's not about forcing the bow to be on that double stop plane. It's just about the proper position, which a lot of that has to do with what you're doing with your elbow. So I encourage you to work on your elbow position and sort of what you're doing there. All right, let's see if I can find another question. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks Gordon, Terry, Nancy. You guys are great. Appreciate you guys being here. Thanks Kathy. Good to see your name and face. Fran asked, what exactly where should the thumb be on the bow? That's a great question. So basically the thumb needs to be right in that groove. Try not to stiffen the thumb. Make sure it's curved, it's very important. And make sure that as you're bowing down, don't let it get stiff. I see that all the time, and students make the bow tense, which causes bow bouncing, bow screeches, all of the above. So that's what we don't want. Great. Well, thank you guys all for being here. I see Tim Olson, Gail Ryan, Kate, Don. Thanks guys for joining me. Gordon, Paula, probably people from all over the world. It's great to see you guys. I really appreciate your support. All right, I'm going to pick a random winner. Here we go. Good luck. The winner of the book is Terry Sparks. Congratulations. Congratulations, Terry. You just won my Fiddle for Dummies book. Yay. Congratulations. Cool. So, yeah, please email me at michael@superiorviolins.com. And tomorrow, we're going to be doing another class at 10 p.m. Actually, saw that Michelle asked that a.m. or p.m. 10 p.m. tomorrow. And I still have probably 40, 50 questions to answer. I'm sure I'll get even more tomorrow. So I'll do my best just to get through them. But I really enjoy helping you guys and giving you guys, ideas on how to improve. Ultimately, my hope and my goal is that all you guys are able to get excited about the violin, continue to practice, and just build skill. Eventually, I want to see you guys all just, become awesome at the violin and meet your goals. So I know you guys can all do it. Thank you all for watching. Hope you guys have a great evening. Practice your violins. I'll post another video probably tomorrow. I'll aim for sometime in the afternoon, say 1 p.m., maybe do another jam. And then tomorrow night at 10, we'll see you guys in the class. Bye, guys.